Hey folks, welcome to episode 3 of this guitar build series. In this one we're going to be staining the neck, generally just finishing the neck. We're going to be using these two, so green and black, standard water-based, like I said, Coban Guitars staining stains. So let's go, let's do that right now. Okay, so here we go. Before starting the staining process, I did spend a good while sanding the neck down to 400 grit. Then I wet it to raise the grain, and then left the neck to dry. Luckily today it's really sunny, so you can just leave it outside in the sun, and it doesn't take too long to dry up. So you can then do that a couple of times to just really minimize the grain raising. So this neck should be quite nice and smooth, having been sanded down to 400. I probably will need to sand it down again once the stain is down, but I think that'll work. I'll probably, what I'm not sure is whether or not I will want to have another layer of black to just really blacken it up, or if I'm going to want to put a layer of green. This rag isn't necessarily ideal because it actually absorbs quite a lot, but at the same time it's quite useful in that it doesn't flood the wood. So it allows me to be a little bit more careful in how the stain is being applied. Right, so that's I think that's it for the black. It's not entirely pitch black. Some of the grain didn't soak in, like some very fine lines didn't soak in the stain, but that retains the texture of the wood, and I think I quite like that. There's a bit of a sheen, or a bit of a pattern on the back of the neck, which I've also noticed in the sunlight on the front. So we'll see whether this is something that will be more apparent once the whole of the stain is put on, and then the guitar finishing oil is put on top of that. If not, no big deal, but if it can give it like a little bit more interest, it'd be even better. So next is applying the green, and again I'll just show you the result, because yeah, it'll be boring otherwise. So I'll see you when that's done. Okay, we're back. So there it is, if you can see. So because of the original color of the mahogany, the green is okay, I like it, but I might need to apply a couple of more coats just to kind of like really build up the layers. I've already applied quite a few coats, and it seems to be, taking a long time to really get to the kind of color that I'm looking for. But it does have like this same diagonal, like this way. There's a line going straight across, which gives kind of like a nice contrast of lighter and darker color, which is quite nice. So now I've got to make a decision on whether I want to apply a couple more just to darken it up a little bit. Reasonably happy with the way the black edges kind of like blended in reasonably well with the green, so that looks okay, I think. I think I'll do a couple more layers, and then we will be ready for finishing. There we go. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I'm in the middle of putting some guitar finishing oil on this snake, and I've already done 3 coats. It's nice and shiny, but I want to put another 2 coats. I think that should be the right amount for what I'm looking for. Normally, from what I understand, they recommend to put between 4 and 6 coats, and it depends on how shiny you want your guitar to be in the end. I quite like more of a satin finish, so I probably won't go all the way to 6 coats, but I'm going to do another 2 coats on this. So to do that, gloves. I like to work with the light just to give me an idea about just how well it's covering it. Seems like a logical thing to do, but for the carving of the head, that's slightly more tricky, in the sense that my finger isn't pointy or angled, so getting into those nooks and crannies in here can be a bit of a challenge. So what I do, so I've got my piece of scrap in here, which I've got a point, and then I just kind of jam it in there with the rag in between, and just kind of gently apply it in all those nooks and crannies, and that seems to be doing the job relatively well. Again, that rag, this is now on its 4th coat, so it's got plenty of residual oil left on it that you really don't need to oversaturate it at all. It's also quite important to apply it in the direction of the grain to maximize penetration. So you can either apply it in circles, or I tend to do both. So if I do a first application in circles and then just kind of like rub it in the direction of the grain, and that seems to work quite well. For the heel there, I'm not too bothered about really soaking it in. A lot of that is going to be hidden from view anyway, so the most important bit is really that top bit, which is going to be visible from the back. But otherwise, I'm not even bothering to put it near the at the butt there. All of it is going to be hidden from view anyway. Okay, and that's basically it. Now you just leave it to dry for about 5 or 10 minutes until it's well penetrated and sort of like feels a bit tacky. Then you take a clean cloth, wipe off the excess, and just leave it to cure for, well, according to the instructions, leave it to cure for about 2 to 4 hours. I've been leaving it just over 2 hours. That seems to be enough. Okay, so we're back. I just need a small piece of tissue paper. This isn't super strong stuff, this isn't high quality stuff, but it's perfectly fine just to wipe off the excess. Kind of folded it out neatly, and then just what I do is I try to kind of look, again using the light, to make sure that there's no residue, and that the excess is properly wiped off. It doesn't take very long at all, because during these 10 minutes or so, most of the oil has had the time to properly get into the pores of the wood. As you can see, the because it's not great high quality paper, I get kind of some residue, but that's not a huge deal. I can deal with that. And that's pretty much it. What I don't do, however, is I don't really bother with the top at the carving level here, mostly because it's end grain, so there's not really going to be any excess to absorb. The whole thing will just have been kind of soaked straight into the fibers. So, and yeah, just take another cloth just to kind of wipe out the residue from the paper. I know I should use better paper, but that's what I've got on hand. So, and that's that. Just kind of leave it to dry again for another 2 to 3 hours, and then we'll come back, see what it's like. So we're getting on to the end of the setting up of the neck, and I've already applied some fret conditioner, and I've taped up the frets as best as I can because I finished oiling. Now what I want to do is to just kind of put some marker on the frets and just kind of give it a quick level with this. I hope I won't have to re-crown, but if I do have a crowning file. I did sort of try, and some of the frets look a little bit loose, so I know this isn't like a dead blow hammer, but it's relatively light, and I went extremely gently. Some frets kind of looked like they were not completely seated. I'm a bit scared that the frets were actually not exactly the same radius as the fretboard. So we'll have to see in the long run if the guitar will have to be completely refretted with a slightly different radius. But that's not something to worry about in the immediate future. So right now I'm just going to level them as best as I can. Some of them are starting to kind of come ever so slightly come out on the side, so I'm going to have to level that on the side as well, just so that they're not sharp. And then once I'm happy with this, with the frets, I will call that neck finished. That is until I put all of the hardware on, but I'm going to do the hardware at the end of the series. So let's see if we can level those frets. Okay, so I've kind of finished leveling the frets. I'm quite happy with how they are just now. I've tested every one of them with the fret leveler. So now, because the top have been sort of like flattened out, I'm kind of re-crowning them with the crowning file. I've never done this before, so I don't know if it's not going to be a very pretty job, but once I'm finished, I'm trying to be as gentle as possible, only really going 1, maybe 2 passes over sharp bits, just to make sure that all the frets are nice and smooth, and then I'll go over with a fret rubber to sort of like remove all of the marks from the file. And then I think we'll be done. There's not much more left to do. This is a really reasonably quick job, because you really don't want to spend too long on there, otherwise you're just going to wear these frets will just kind of, you could flatten them out with this. So let me just find where I was. Also don't want to get that, I want it to get nice and smooth, but I don't want to change the angle of the frets, because the further in you push them, the less the string is going to be able to sit on there, especially here at the higher string level. you really want to be careful that you're not overdoing it. You really just want to make sure it's just takes off the edge. But you know, it's not going to be perfect, but if you're going to practice this, this is as good an opportunity to practice doing this as anything, really. So I think at this point I'm gonna take the tape off and then go over it with a rubber, and then we'll call it done. And finally I'm going over the frets with a fine rubber. I'm not sure what the equivalent is. I think it's about 3,000 grit, something like that. At this point it's just to make the fret nice and shiny. I've taken the tape off. It shouldn't damage the fretboard at this level. So that's it with the polishing. I think it's not perfect. I wasn't expecting it to be, but that'll do for the moment. There are still a few sharp edges here on the side which I need to just kind of quickly tidy up with the file, and then just put some fretboard finish over the whole thing, and that will be my neck done. So let's do that, and then I can kind of try and do some glamour shots, if you can call it that, and we can wrap up this video. Okay, so I'm going to call this done now. The fret leveling job was a little bit more scary than I was expecting, because some of these frets still look like they're not really seated properly, which somewhat worries me. But I hope that in the long run I might have to replace them, but I will have to first find out how well they work as they are. So I'm reasonably pleased with the result of this work, given that I had never done any of this before, never leveled any frets, never kind of oiled a guitar or stained that type of wood, that kind of thing. So you know, as far as first goals go, this is a success, I would say. Well, I should really wait until the whole guitar is put together and see if it's actually playable before calling a success. But aesthetically speaking, yeah, it works. So the fretboard's ready, the frets should be level. I have double checked them, and we'll just have to see how well it fits. Hopefully the rest of the body will fit. I'm still concerned about the fact that the neck pocket is just ever so slightly bigger, so it's not a snug fit. And from having watched so many guitar building videos recently, I know that when you're building a guitar together, you really want to have like a really nice snug fit in your neck pocket, which it isn't really, but because it is a bolt-on neck, I'm not too worried about that. So cross fingers, it should sort itself out. So the next video is going to be staining and finishing the body, so it should be a reasonably short video, but it is quite an important one, because this is where the main look of what I'm looking for in this particular guitar is really going to come out. So I hope that what I've learned by staining the neck first is going to help me avoid some mistakes in the staining of the body and then the finishing. I just wanted to quickly show you the finish on the side there. When I taped, when I started staining it, I noticed that the stain was going into the binding there, and I wasn't sure whether I would be able to take it off or not, so I taped the binding to try and give me a nice crisp edge. Now on this side I didn't have any problems. The tape just followed the binding, no problem, but on that side somehow it managed to curve its way along there, so there's a slight I did correct it once I took the tape off. I restained it to try and match the color, then reapplied some finish. You can kind of tell in the touch that it's not quite the same because it doesn't have the same buildup of the oil, but we'll have to see how well it works with time. I'm not really going to spend too much time on this. I've already spent quite a lot of time on this already, and you know, it's a mistake, you learn from it. It's not a big deal. If it becomes a really big deal, take some sandpaper, sand it off, restain and refinish, and you know, all I've got in here is guitar oil. There's no polyurethane or anything like that, and I don't particularly intend to put that kind of protection on there. I quite like the kind of more sort of natural finish rather than the kind of really glossy stuff that you tend to find on there. We'll see how well it stays with time, but yeah, so I just wanted to, you know, be fully transparent, even though because it's dark you can't really see it from afar anyway. So sorry for rambling on it. I still like the head. The head is really the headstock. I'm really quite happy with that. So again, thanks for watching. I will be back the next video. I really want to try and wrap up this series so I can have a full guitar to play with. So the next video again will be the staining of the body. So please stay safe and try and keep yourself busy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.